We just arrived at the southern tip of Baja, California. What a ride it had been so far. Last night I thought we were under attack by aliens, or seeing the end of the world by asteroid, but it just ended up being one of those SpaceX satellites crashing down to Earth. The guys were getting ready and comfortable on deck to enjoy the show, because it is a show arriving in Cabo San Lucas by boat. Bit by bit, the amount of boats on the water grew, and the hotels on the landscape sprouted up and outwards. Luxury homes are right up to the tippy-toe edge of the cliffs, as if the more precarious the dwelling is, the more they can charge for the Airbnb rental. If you have been following along with this boat delivery, you will know that we had been seeing a lot of whales. The charter boats were gathering behind these humpbacks and following them like they were hunting them down. We had motorboats crisscrossing our bow dangerously as we were trying to make our way to the anchorage, and they were rushing to ogle at the whales. We wanted to fill up our water tanks here in Cabo San Lucas, so we headed for the fuel dock to request a fill. But they did not have any. They also did not have any space at any of the marinas, and there were long lineups on waiting lists to park your boat in these parts.
Robbie's got the front row.
Yeah, I will. Give it to him.
So off we turned into the anchorage to look for a friend of ours, Barry, who we could share some fish with.
What are you doing, Scott?
Dropping la ancla.
I thought that would be like more exciting.
We're dropping the f***ing anchor, right?
Even though this big needlefish was freaking me out because I thought it was a barracuda, as is custom, I jumped into the glorious Cabo water. We had made it again. There's nothing like arriving in these southerly waters after being up north and then leisurely checking out the belly of the boat.
Check this out.
And I'm advertising no bullshit, just sailing.
Oh,
Sailing
yeah,
out.
sorry, man. It was a
good.
gift. Look at this. Dorado. Look
Gold.
at that. Oh my
The fish
God.
gold.
The gold. This is just like the bomb.
We all enjoyed a celebratory fish taco meal together. From the passage here, I was used to being awake at about 5 a.m. these days. A newly arrived cruise ship and all the fishing boats were awake at that time too. We were on our way again. No time for partying in Cabo. We were looking for water, and ultimately needing to get this lady rage to her haul out. At this time in the morning, the tourist boats were already packed to the brim, chasing whales around the Cabo San Lucas Bay. The whales were making a run for it towards the cruise ship. We were heading towards San Jose del Cabo, a short half-day hop from here, to see if they had space at their marina, so that we could take on some fresh water. Along the way, many beautiful hotels, homes, and complexes, and every minute another plane full of excited visitors landing at the nearby airport. We entered into San Jose del Cabo Marina, a petite little approach, and pulled up at the fuel dock just ahead of the repurposed Japanese fishing vessel.
Shark water.
The marina was fully booked here as well. They fortunately did have water here though, and they also made an exception for us to stay overnight at the fuel dock. We were expecting a blow from the north again tomorrow, right in our face without a protected anchorage to hide in.
You're in your race. You're not allowed to.
Here we are doing groceries in the mini mart.
The marina had some interesting artwork all around. I saw some mermaid-themed statues up north in another marina. In this particular place, hooded cult style was in vogue.
Millions and millions of dollars for the property right here.
Signs told us that camels were nearby. The marina security guard was standing under a tree filled with birds chowing down on these little fruit. He let us know that this was camachile or huamachile. Tastes like a lightly sweet bean or a green pea, and in fact it belongs to the legume family. It originates from this part of Mexico. I always love finding out that I can eat local plants. We set out the next day to finally head north into the Sea of Cortez. Everything seemed to be going fairly well as we tacked upwards. We spotted another vessel taking the same route. They turned around as we began to lightly pound into some slight chop. It was a very slight chop, but the mast was flexing and the wind was shifting more and more into our faces. This was one of the first times I can say we turned around out of sheer inconvenience. Let's just try this again tomorrow, we thought. And so we did. The conditions were so much better the next day. We glided along this time, sailing towards where we wanted to go instead of motoring into an annoying chop. Robbie was having fun fishing barrilete and cooking up lunch.
Okay, put him back in.
Better conditions just by waiting less than 24 hours, and we were in much better spirits. By sunset, we were approaching Ensenada de los Muertos, the small anchorage just at the very edge, the corner before entering into the Sea of Cortez. And we decided to keep on going instead of entering into another anchorage in the dark. The wind was propelling us along perfectly again as we passed La Ventana, a small town that looked to be growing with lights and growing in size compared to the last time Robbie and I came around this corner in the dark. By sunrise, Isla Cerralvo was in our wake, surrounded by beautiful burning colors, the kind of stuff that is wonderfully common around these parts. The ferry that crosses from mainland Mexico to the Baja Peninsula passes through here, between Isla Cerralvo and Isla Espiritu Santo. I altered my course a bit to point the bow directly behind their stern so that there would be no misunderstandings about intended trajectories. We all went along our merry ways with plenty of room as they continued on to La Paz and we buzzed alongside the breathtaking Espiritu Santo and Partita. At the northernmost tip of this little chain of islands lies one of our favorite sites in the whole Sea of Cortez. I pondered going for a swim, but it seemed pretty chilly out these days. I collected this old wetsuit from the garbage pile of a marina that we were at, and I thought about putting it on. Well, I was really glad that I did. The water was cold and murky this early morning. Robbie stayed on the boat to maneuver her back and forth while the rest of us would swim over to the island and say hello to the residents there. This island rises up sharply from the rocky dark depth of about 20 to 50 meters. I was just gaping down into the shadowy murk when... Oh! Here's a friend. One of the many sea lions that love to greet visitors to these here islotes. This one seemed to ask me to pluck the parasites off of its face, but I keep my fingers close to my body at all times. The sea lions of Los Islotes were very playful, as I think we were the first people in the water that morning, and they wanted to show off their agility to us. But they were also very bitey this morning, to the point where we had to gently push this little guy away, as it was after Scott's sensitive bits. The divers were arriving on the scene, and it was time for us to rendezvous with Robbie. Here you can see that I'm staring down into the depths the whole way back to the boat. The water was feeling particularly sharky this morning, and the sea lions never follow you more than a couple of meters away from their safe spot of the island.
nippy?
They were nippy, yeah, like.
We were on a roll. We just kept on moving. The weather was perfectly calm. Rage was itching to sail to her haul-out appointment. We were flying past sights, sounds, tastes, and smells that were all worth visiting, but would have to wait until another time. Reefs to snorkel, wildlife to view, endless trails and hikes, towns to explore, spots to fish, small villages to say hello to the people in. We didn't even stop to check out this mysterious floating carcass that may have been a sea lion floating down from up north. Just before the sun was setting again, we received another delightful welcome from the inhabitants of the sea. A pod of leaping dolphins in the current-filled pass between the island of San Jose, Isla San Diego, and the towering mountains.
Okay, go ahead and start it. We'll see if they're doing.
In the middle of the night, making our way north, the wind had died completely. Chunks of debris were still clogging up the fuel line.
I think whatever's getting sucked in now is so big, it just, you blow it and it'll disappear later to be caught another time. Try it again. And one more time. One more time.
Trying to get rid of the air bubble.
Yeah, now we have air.
So he cracked open the fuel line and bled the air out.
That's how much it flows without the pump on.
Well, I'm pumping it by hand. Go ahead, start it.
The weather was so dang calm, but we had to take this opportunity to cross the sea now. The crossing can easily become quite messy in our experience, with just a little bit of wind, and we were looking at about 40 knots arriving in the next day or so.
What heading are we doing?
0. Just the quantity of fish we're going to catch today. The fat 0.
It needs a few things, rigging related.
It's
Solar panels.
solar panels, a wind vane.
Some shade over the cockpit would be nice. Yeah, a wind vane and or autopilot would be a good upgrade.
I think the family is going to use the boat for cruising rather than racing.
Traffic line away from going, the boom bank will be installed there, I guess.
The galley sink also needed to be dealt with, either a new macerator or a direct through hull.
We had the same problem on the Hans, dude, and the sink would just fill with water and like wouldn't really spill over. It would spill over a little bit if the seas were rough, but the sink mainly just fills up, and then someone's like, hey, there's water on the counter, you know? It's not like, you look at that macerator system and there's nothing simple about it.
Yeah.
It's like a garbage disposal on a boat, and when you think about electrical demand and, you know, your battery bank and...
Plus it's all off because the seacock is actually higher than the macerator. So when you switch it
Well,
off,
the mass-
there's a lot of water that stays in that pipe. So that's why
The one that goes to the fore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually higher than the. That's why. So most of the water stays in there.
Then you got nasty gray water in there all the time. It's like, ugh. Hey, you remember when I pulled the hose and then like a little piece of death came out?
Oh, it was like poop in there. Did you see it?
Dripless shaft
That's
bearing
gonna
is not dripless anymore, so that's
yeah.
gonna to teak or not to teak.
Not the teak.
Dude, you lighten the. How much wood do you think this? How much do you think it weighs?
You remove it all.
Yeah, I guarantee you it's at least 600 pounds of wood that you'll strip off of the. Dude, probably more. And the boat will sail better. The decks won't be hot on your feet in the day. Waterproof, you know, like.
Does somebody take these teak decks to recycle them? Like, do people take it?
I don't think so.
It's just garbage, burning.
You could probably reclaim it into something else, like.
Maybe artists looking.
Yeah, you could probably make like an epoxy infusion table.
And then when you're removing the teak deck, you can also remove a lot of the deck hardware you don't want to use.
Go sailing.
Yeah, very important. Go sailing.
I would not get too carried away. I'd do everything as simple as possible and go enjoy life and sail this thing.
Definitely.
Arriving in Wymus, but not without one last engine problem. Coming into port
At night.
at night again.
Prop shaft reverse. Back to neutral.
Yeah, that's been done.
Bad one.
I need tools for this. Great timing.
Mm-hmm.
3 miles away from my anchor.
So it likes to do this 3 miles away off of things,
I'd
right?
rather do it 3 miles away than
1 mile.
300.
So join us next time